Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Harry Barr. I'm the CEO and chairman of New Age Metals. We have decided to do our first Q1 CEO Q&A. From time to time, we basically asked interested parties, and certainly our shareholders, if they have any questions. So I'm going to answer some of the questions we've received in the first quarter in this video. Question 1, is New Age Metals planning to build a mine in River Valley, or is it the goal to secure a partnership on the property? How will shareholders benefit if the property is sold? So at this point, we are going through the economic steps as if we were to build the mine ourselves. This is going to be a very big project. It's one of the largest projects of its kind in North America. As you know, platinum group metals are very scarce. Most of the PGMs come from Russia and South Africa, so having a project of this kind in North America is quite unique. In terms of how do we go from here, we've been using our equity to complete the pre-feasibility study. It's about a $4 million study. It's going to take over a year to complete. And in terms of going from there, we will have to see what the pre-feasibility study tells us. I would imagine it's going to tell us that we would have to complete a feasibility study, and don't know exactly what price that's going to be yet, but we expect it would be in the $10 to $15 million range. The reason it'd be closer to $15 million is we have about 1.6 million ounces in the third category that just needs further drilling to bring that into the pre-feasibility study and add hopefully many years of mine life. So we'll have to do a fair bit of drilling along with the study. So that's what would make it more expensive. The second part of the question, how will the shareholders benefit if the property is sold? If the property is sold outright, I would think two things would happen. That money would go into the treasury of the company, and then we would have to decide if we would push some of that money or all of that money out to our shareholders as a dividend, or how we would handle that at that time. But at this point, it's our goal to continue to develop the property and get it ready for production. Second question, are there any current groups out there who are seriously considering buying the River Valley property? Well, in terms of buying, I think it's a little premature. We have quite a few groups that are interested and want to receive the final pre-feasibility study that should be out by the early fall of 2022. With that document in hand, they'll be much more capable to analyze the size and scope of our property, and that would tell them almost everything they need to know about the property. And so we're anxious to get this document complete and have it available. We are continually, almost on a weekly and monthly basis, talking to different groups who would be capable of helping us finance through the feasibility study, through to production. We talk to major mining companies on a consistent basis, and we're keeping them up to date. But as I say, most of them are waiting for the pre-feasibility study, and that document will help them a lot. Next question is, what are the next milestones for New Age Metals after completing the pre-feasibility study in River Valley? I would think the main recommendation coming out of the pre-feasibility study would be to complete a feasibility study. It'll be basically very similar to the pre-feasibility study. When we started and did a PEA, that was mostly a desktop type of job done by our engineering companies. The pre-feasibility studies had us out in the field doing a lot of geotechnical work, and drilling and checking on water, and doing a lot of environmental work and metallurgical work. And we'll be anxious to see what other steps need to be taken for the final feasibility study. But I think it'll be a little bit more of the same, possibly more metallurgical work, possibly more geotechnical work, and basically honing right in on exactly what it would cost to build a mine, and what would be our return on that investment. What is management's opinion on the warrants that were not exercised in February 2022? We had quite a few warrants in 2022 expire. We did talk to our major shareholder, and given the fact we had about 8 million in the treasury, he's an international investor and has many investments in the mining industry. And he said he was basically only taking down warrants to help companies that he was invested in that needed money at the time. As we had 8 million in the treasury, that was not our case, so we didn't really need the money. So we just kind of mutually agreed that he wouldn't take down his warrants. Some of the people did take down warrants, and some of them didn't. The challenge was we were only trading at about 11 or 12 cents, and a lot of the warrants were at 10 cents, so they were kind of right at or just barely in the money. And that typically happens. The warrants aren't taken down if that's the case. How are the current PGM prices affecting the economics of River Valley, and does this factor make it easier to find a potential partner or buyer? Well, yes, anytime metal prices are high in the commodities that your project has, I think that helps the company. Obviously, PGMs, and our primary PGM is palladium, has been a good price for several years, trading ahead of gold. It did take a bit of a nosedive last fall down to just past $1,500, but went as high as over $3,300 here in the last week or two. I think a lot of that is based on the fact that Russia produces about 40% of the world's supply of PGMs, and primarily it's the largest palladium producer. So economics and prices of PGMs do affect our project. And I think as long as they stay up in these areas, it's certainly going to help the economics and the bottom line of the pre-feasibility study we're doing. And I think it certainly will help other partners, potential partners, be interested in the project based on the price of the metals. And it would also help in future financings for us. With Russia being a major palladium producer, what is your outlook for the palladium price? Well, that's an exceptionally good question. I would think it doesn't look like this war is going to end very soon. It's very tragic, and I wish it would. But with the sanctions that the world has put onto Russia, I would think that most of the certainly North American and European groups that would buy Russia's palladium and platinum and other metals, nickel, etc., will not be. And so that probably puts most of the metals that Russia has going to China, which a lot of them already do. So I think that all of this situation is certainly going to help keep the price of palladium and other metals at a pretty high price going forward. So those are the questions on our River Valley project. If anybody listening has any other questions, you could send them in for the next quarter and I can answer them, or we can answer them directly if you give us a call at the office. So this question is now on our Manitoba lithium projects, and it was, what are the 222 exploration objectives for the Manitoba lithium projects? Since 2016, we've been acquiring projects in southern Manitoba that would have lithium and possibly other rare earths, rare metals, but our major focus is on lithium. We've done so in an area that is around a mine called Tanco that's been in production since '69, and we were just talking to that part of the Tanco management team a week ago, and they're actually back producing lithium again. They produce lithium, tantalum, and cesium, all from different areas of an underground mine. And now they're currently probably the only producer of lithium in Canada, and they're shipping their concentrates to China because they've been taken over by a Chinese company about 2 years ago. Our initial objective for these lithium properties was to become the largest landholder in the Winnipeg River pegmatite field, which we have. We have 7 projects and we're expanding on that. We should be announcing several new projects before the year's over. Then our secondary objective was to go and find a partner, and we're quite happy to announce last September that we have acquired the 5th largest producer of lithium in the world. They're an Australian company called Mineral Resources. And we've signed a binding agreement with them, and they're funding our 2022 exploration objectives. We do not have the final budget in place yet. This is just their budget time, and we've submitted it all to our partners, and we look forward. My dog gave me the view. We have just recently submitted our 2022 budget to our partners in Australia, and end of March, early April is their deadline for their 2022 exploration programs, I guess, worldwide. So we don't have a final number on that, but we expect this year's budget to be somewhere in the $1 million to $1.5 million. And that will entail a bunch of field work following up on the geophysical program we did last year on 5 properties. We spent about $300,000. So we'll put boots in the ground in those anomalies and try to get those properties closer or move them to the drill stage. Of the 3 properties that we hope to be drilling soon, we've drilled 1 property late last fall, and we've just got the assays back. Unfortunately, assays labs are really backed up, and it's just taking months to get the information. So we should have an announcement out on that first drill program we did on lithium 2, and I would hope in mid-April at the latest. We also plan to do a second phase subject to the results on the first phase of that project of drilling. And then we have a drill permit for the project we call Lithium 1, and we hope to drill on that. So a quick review of what we plan to do is at least 2 drill programs in 2022. Follow up on the geophysical program by doing a bunch of geological boots on the ground, following up with anomalies from the geophysical program, and acquiring some other projects in the near vicinity of where we're working in southern Manitoba. Next question is, what are Mineral Resources limited objectives relating to the binding agreement that they have with New Age Metals? Do you think they'll ever build a lithium mine? Well, I can't speak on behalf of Mineral Resources, but in terms of what I think they plan to do is they are the 5th largest producer in the world, and like any other lithium company, they're looking to expand on their territories and their projects and to find new projects that they can basically get into production somewhere down the road. So as I said, we're quite happy working with them. They're a very good group and have been very good people to work with to date. And this will be our first big year in terms of dollars in the ground, as we just got started late with them on a deal last year. So I think their objectives are to move forward, explore these properties as best we can, and try to find a new project that could become a mine and eventually build a mine someday, if in fact we can find a project of that kind or that nature. Here's a question. What role does Eric Sprott play in the company? Well, Mr. Sprott, as most people know, is probably the best known international investor based out of Toronto, Ontario. He has investments in many, many companies from our size right up to producers, and is quite famous in the gold and silver area. At my last talk with Mr. Sprott, he admitted that he didn't have a lot of investments in the platinum group metals. In fact, we tried to get him in several years in a row, and he said he was following the company, but wasn't in the space. So it was in basically late 2019, early 2020 that he took his first main interest in both platinum group metals as a whole and in our company. And then last year he expanded his position to about 24.5%. So we expect that Mr. Sprott will have a lot to do with the company going forward. At this time, we correspond with him in his office and keep them up to date. And that's kind of where we're at with Mr. Sprott and his role to date. As I say, as we get more developed here and the project get more developed, so we expect him to certainly have a major say in what we're doing going forward. How much cash does NAM have and how far along will that get you before raising more? The last time I asked our CFO to update us on the treasury was a couple of weeks ago, and we had close to $8 million with no debt. We are more than halfway through our $4 million spend on the pre-feasibility study. So we could easily end this year with probably 4 million plus in the treasury. No plans yet to raise any additional funding, but you never say never in this industry, and we'll just have to see how things go along this year. But at this point, we're no plans to raise money soon, but that could change as we will need more money to continue the development of our projects. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate the questions that were sent in, and I hope this has helped enlighten you a little bit more about our plans, both now and going forward. As I say, our office is open 5 days a week, and either by email or by phone, which is 613-659-2773. You can dial in and set up a meeting with either myself or Cody Hunt. And we'd be happy to answer any of your questions or expand on what we're talking about today. Thank you very much, and we plan to do this every quarter, answer any of the questions that we are submitted to. So thank you again.